the best part is really hearing from fellow Jamaicans and even non-Jamaicans about what the work means to them.
Book publishing has many paths, and just figuring out where to go at each stage can be confusing. But with insights and guidance from author experts just like us, you can tackle the writing process competently and be assured that the goal of being a published author is within reach. Welcome to the Caribbean Authorpreneur Summit, the place for Caribbean authors to shine. With each staging of our summit, leading Caribbean author experts at home and in the diaspora share their stories and strategies to win with books beyond book sales. In the process, aspiring and published authors are inspired and lives are transformed. The Caribbean Authorpreneur Summit will ensure that fewer books die in the minds of their authors, more manuscripts become published legacies, and precious lives are transformed with the turn of each page. In 2023, get ready to leverage, market, and build a lasting legacy with your books and win with books beyond book sales. See you there. Welcome to the Authorpreneur Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Ruth Taylor, and this is a show that gives you the roadmap to take charge of your publishing with stories and strategies to dominate authorpreneurship. In celebration of Jamaica's 60th anniversary of independence, two creatives, acclaimed photographer David Muir and photographer, fine artist, and fellow Jamaican Sean Henry, set out to create a meaningful keepsake that inspires and celebrates the momentous occasion with a beautiful coffee table book called Pieces of Jamaica. Through Muir's lens and Henry's brush strokes, the spirit of Jamaica comes alive. Today we have with us David Muir to tell us more about this iconic project and its significance, as well as his journey in publishing. This new book is a sequel to his 2012 photo art collection turned coffee table bestseller, Pieces of Jamaica, the Real Rock edition. David is a photo artist, author, entrepreneur, and community leader. His special love for candid cultural and lifestyle photography inspires his work and is a signature component of his art collections. And he has won many awards, and his exhibitions have been displayed at home and abroad. He's also the president of Island Syndicate, a multiple award-winning creative services agency specializing in photography, publishing, and multimedia services. So without further ado, let's welcome David to the show. Hi, David.
Hello. Thank you so much, Ruth. That was amazing. I like hearing those glowing words of praise on what we've accomplished.
Yes, it is fabulous. Part of my whole thing is preserving cultural heritage and to showcase Caribbean excellence. All right, so talk to us. Why did you decide to put a coffee table book together to celebrate Jamaica's 60th anniversary? Why wasn't the first book enough?
I hope it was enough for what was the intent of the first book. The first book, honestly, Ruth, is something that I think was a personal tribute to Jamaica. It was something that really was because of my love of Jamaica and my artistic pursuit, was a story telling what my personal views of Jamaica was. So I saw it much more as an artistic project than as a historic or a culture preserving project. This new effort is a completely different, it's actually in a whole different stratosphere. And so this work, this new Pieces of Jamaica, the Jamrock edition, really is more about telling a fuller story, a more complete sense of who we are, and also what is the island like. The first book really had very few sort of larger landscape displays. and it also did not have any historical context in the book. It was really more artistic than it was informational. This new work brings it to a whole nother level.
I love it. And let's backtrack a little bit so we get why you did this. Photography to publishing. How do you tie all of them together? And why not just stick to photography? Why couldn't you just have created a website and just the pictures there? Talk to us about that journey and your love of photography and how it has blossomed into these things.
You have a lot of time. You just have a big question with a lot of parts. Honestly, there is so much to share in this journey. I'd never planned to be a publisher. I didn't even really plan to be a photographer. But the photography is one singular part. Part of what happened for me in finding a way to leave the 9-to-5 world, or to exist without it. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a teenager. I've worked my life mostly for myself. And in doing so, you have to find ways that you can, how do I say this best? Survive. People don't understand necessarily if you're working in a 9-to-5 scenario where you depend on someone else to provide your paycheck, that the complexity of what you can accomplish and what you should go after is very different when you are an entrepreneur. And so for me, there are a lot of factors here that really speak to why publishing is important. But if you want to get right down to what it is for the consumer, it's great to give them something that they can place, that is a physical product that people can come into their homes or in their businesses and pick up and touch and feel and look through and connect with the person who is sharing this and understand, oh, this is Jamaica. This is something special. This is, oh, I didn't know this historical fact. And it's a conversation starter. If it's simply on a website, it's an individual experience. Only one person at a time will share in that. There is no community surrounding that effort. There's no connection between multiple people having reviewed this in one setting. There's no, here's a grandparent and a grandchild having a moment together. Looking at pictures on the screen is a completely different effect. But as to why publishing is important to me, not only as someone who now calls himself an artist, it took me a long time to get to the point where I actually would own that label for myself. But a website just doesn't do it for me, the artist. I don't get to interact myself with the person who's receiving my messages. When I get to, have somebody sit with me and look through my artistic expression, it brings and yields for me a whole nother experience to have something physical in hand. But down to the nitty-gritty, just the real essence of why, to me, publishing is important and why I have now been doing it for years. Like I said, never planned for it, is that it is a financial way to survive. It is a very important thing. People always say to me, oh, but isn't print dead? Like, you guys have these magazines and you have all these things. Like, so why don't we just do everything online? Well, guess what? There is benefit to having a physical product. And, I would say definitively, when someone can come to me and do an exchange of funds, a barter, whatever it is, once we start to interact in a space where I have a product and you have dollars to exchange for that product, it is completely different when it's just web-based. I'll tell you that in my experience, books don't sell well online. They sell, surely. I've had orders come in this morning that need to be fulfilled and so on. But it's a completely different sell than when I'm at a book fair or have a book signing and people come to me in person and they want my signature and they want me to put a few words to them in my book. And these are things that you cannot easily replicate in the digital sphere. So for me, I think the physical product is really, really important. And I also just add by saying for photography, its scope is very different. When you see the different size of a print, when you as actually physically have a book in your hand at a certain size and weight, it doesn't translate in the same way when you're seeing something digitally online. It'll be the size of your screen. Some people looking on their phone, this is a little thing like this. Some people have a bigger screen, it's bigger. But the impact of a physical book with a physical size and physical everything, the layout remains the same no matter what. It's not based on your screen or your, how things get compressed or whether you're looking at it tall or you're looking at it wide. My book is a book that you physically interact with the way I predetermined that I want you to experience it. And that means a lot.
Wow. David, you're dropping a lot of gems on us because people do ask these things. I can relate to the struggle of entrepreneurship. As a matter of fact, when I decided to offer publishing services, because there were some friends who were hounding me for about 2 years. And because I found it, challenging, especially the editing, my first experience was not so pleasant with it. I overspent, went into debt, and I didn't have a positive first experience. And I thought about doing it, and I said, let me just help out my friends. Then when I left my part-time job, and I'm a Christian, and I felt God was saying no 9 to 5. I was wondering where the rent going to come from, all kind of stuff. And then I just heard in my mind, you're leaving money on the table for publishing services. And I shot up out the bed, put up a post, and that very same day, persons contacted me. And so when you say that the financial aspect to it, if you really want to earn an income, then publishing and offering publishing services is a good way. And Ecclesiastes 12 says, of the making of books, there is no end. So if there's no end to making many books, then publishing will continue. And I found that during the pandemic, I thrived. We still wanted those books. And so I want to encourage you out there, if you're a photographer, to consider putting your work in a book like he did, and consider coffee table books, because we're going to see that the retail value of that is even higher than normal books. But before we get there, it seemed like a silly question, but for the uninitiated, what is a coffee table book?
Well, it's a fancy term and it doesn't really have great meaning. It just means something that we're going to display. So a coffee table is a place of prominence in your home. It's something that sits typically in a living area, or if it's in a hotel, it could be in the lobby area. It's a place where you would place things when we're relaxing and spending time together. So if we're having a meeting, there could be a table that you will rest your a cup of coffee on it. You may put your notepad there. You may put your computer on the table. But it's the concept of a coffee table book. It's a book which now sits in a prominent place where others will come and see it. Because a coffee table is a place where people are going to commune around, they're going to gather around that space. A coffee table just being a place where we gather. A coffee table is a place that will give anything you place on the coffee table a prominent view to those who join you in that space.
And still yet, for the uninitiated, what size book are we talking about? Can an ordinary book like this, be a coffee table book, or does it have to be letter size, a big size? Talk to us, educate us.
So, and I guess to be clearer, I love the clearer, a coffee table book can be many different sizes. I would strongly suggest that the smallest size be something approximately like 8 by 10. Honestly, my books, I have now 2 coffee table books of my work, and they're both 12 by 12, which is a very large book size. So they're 12 inches tall by 12 inches wide. And the reason is, for me, a square coffee table book is so that we can show both horizontal and vertical images in sort of a similar amount of space. Typically, what happens when you make a coffee table book in a, let's just say, a rectangular shape, it limits what is possible in terms of vertical images because you don't have the real estate to show those images as large. So I am very mindful to do square coffee table books of my photography because I want to be able to show both vertically and horizontally images in the same sort of real estate or space for size. But I've seen even larger than 12 by 12. Some coffee table books can go even a little bit larger. The problem then becomes, of course, other considerations like how do you now ship a thing that's, I always, and again, I say always, like this is something I've been doing for 30 years. I've only been doing it for about 15 years, but I try to keep the weight of the book under 4 pounds. And to most books don't weigh a pound. So you can gather based on what I'm saying that a coffee table book is going to be heavy. It's going to literally carry weight, and which makes it challenging to send away. So when people order the book and it have to be shipped to them, it becomes somewhat problematic. I literally got a request today to send a few copies of the book to Australia, and the shipping or the freight cost to get it to Australia is hundreds of US dollars. Not a very friendly price, but because of the size and the weight of the coffee table book, it can be challenging in terms of distribution, getting it to certain places, unless you have a distributor in that country. That's a whole nother dialogue. But yeah, a coffee table book is a large book. It's typically going to be at the very smallest 8 inches on the small side. But it can go as large as you can imagine.
I want to stay there a little bit before I show them your beautiful book and the reviews. I noticed your book is on Amazon, and we were doing a children's book, and the size was supposed to be 10 by 10 at the time. And when we tried to upload that, it didn't work. So we had to go to letter size. How did you get your book 12 by 12 on Amazon? Did you go through Ingram Spark or Lulu or one of those to get it? Or did you have to contact them and make special arrangements? How did you navigate that aspect?
Okay, so I think that may require a longer dialogue. I don't think that's a quickie, because doing business with Amazon and or any of the major, what we would like to call mainstream distributors or retailers of books, is a very interesting and dynamic learning experience. Right. So I'll tell you the key to any of it is making the right partnerships. And so, yes, we did not direct sell to Amazon. I have had previous experiences with Amazon that aren't necessarily favorable to publishers or to authors. But in this particular instance, I've found a nice new way forward. And so I did go through what I consider my distributor. I think they may not consider them their distributor, but I found a middle ground. So the company I'm doing my distribution with has a relationship with their buyers, the people who buy for them, their products. And because of their relationship and the relationship I have forged with my distributor, we have been able to supply the likes of Barnes and Noble, the likes of Amazon, and so on, which has really allowed us to really have a much grander distribution network, even into Canada and into the United Kingdom and so on, which is not normal. Typically, distributors stay to one country, or so to be able to have one distributor who can service multiple major countries is undeniably a great scenario. So hopefully that answers that question a little bit.
It does, because one of the things we have to do, you talk about a middle ground. For many of us in the Caribbean doing business with these distributors, we have to go through the middle ground, middle person. That's why I mentioned Ingram Spark, because they distribute to over 40,000 stores and libraries. And so certain sizes that Amazon would not carry, if you wanted to do it directly, you can go through like Ingram Spark to get it done, or Lulu to get your books on Amazon. So I understand that for us to even get paid, we often have to go through a middle.
But can you imagine the business that
person.
Ingram is doing? Can you just imagine the money that they must be making? That everyone must go through Ingram.
They are the big dog, and
oh yeah.
But in a sense, it works out better for us because Amazon gives author discount prices, so which is different from your retail price. And so I find the win for me is that they're distributing. So the different countries, for example, when you go to Amazon Direct, if I wanted to send something to Australia, I could have them pay me direct, and then Amazon ships it for me, so I don't have the headache. And so I find it better, especially when you're talking about coffee table books and books in color and children's books. I could get 100 children's book, 50-page full color from Amazon for less than $700 US. I cannot get that printed locally at that cost. If you are thinking about coffee table books, if you're thinking about books of this nature, David said he has been in the game for about 15 years. And if for those who are watching online, his banner, his backdrop talks about video production, photography, and print publishing. So when we're going to put his details in the show notes, but for more information in terms of getting this done, this is the person. So Island Syndicate, and David Muir is the person. Now, David, talk to us a little bit more about that, where we left up, just to fill in any gaps.
I want to fill in a big gap that I think is really important. You mentioned discounts, and most people won't even have a clue what that means. And there's a lot to publishing and distributing. But I wanna touch on this part first, because you seem to be alluding to the fact that you can have your book printed by someone else, or printed and shared. And I want to make sure it depends on your binding. So again, there's so many terminologies that is important to note. But when you're developing any book product, you have a lot to consider. You have your layout, obviously. Well, you have your content, and then you have to design the content within the pages, and then you have to make this major determination as to, well, what am I printing? Am I printing soft cover, hard cover, and what type of binding am I doing? Am I doing perfect bind? Am I doing sewn stitch? Am I doing? There's so many different avenues on which to consider here. And unfortunately, the type of binding used in my coffee table books is not available anywhere. It's not easily available. So in the United States, I'm going to say there's probably 2 or 3 book printers or who can even handle the type of binding that I use in mine. If we go to other countries, it's not like there's 500 choices. Oh, I can pick the best one of these 500. So you have to be really cognizant of, well, what is it that you want people to have? Is it a certain quality? Is it a certain standard that you were trying to put forward? I want to know personally that if someone owns one of my books, that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, they've passed it down to their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren, and that is held together without any issue. There is no problem with the workmanship to how it was built and created. So for me, it is very, very important, and I can't now turn that print quality control over to a Barnes and Noble or to a Amazon or to necessarily any of these people who can offer these services, because they're not likely to be able to, on a one-by-one book printing basis, publish or print the work that I'm putting out there. So I have a very, very limited scope for how I handle the work, because I want the quality to come first and then take care of the whom am I going to allow to distribute. And it means that once the books are put together, I then have to ship to wherever the distribution is going to then take place. And they're going to have to ship from that distribution point to wherever people are buying it, in wholesale stores, bookstores, and so on, or even retail. So there's a lot to the publishing is not as simple as it making a product and somebody picking it up. It's all the phases and factors that come in between the idea, the creation, and the end user.
I love that. And what you're talking about is really custom made things and done to a particular style. And so I agree with you. And it's really all in the aim of direct selling and you taking charge. So this is not like a traditional publishing deal where somebody covers everything. It falls in the realm of independent publishing. And some things just have to be done that way because it cannot be mass produced like the regular books very often. And this is why I say again, if you're interested in creating a coffee table book, that David Muir is the person to assist you with all of those intricacies and the details. And we're not going to take the whole show to do that. So let's look at the masterpiece David has produced. And you can go to his website, piecesofjamaica.com, or you can go to Amazon and get it. But it's always better when you order from the author, because the author also makes more. Because if you've been listening to the podcast, you know, we break down the royalty share and we let you know what is happening. And so I want to encourage you to order directly from the author. And Pieces of Jamaica, the Jamrock edition, it is looking so beautiful. And then when you go to his site as well, in his media kit, they give you synopsis of the book. And so we're looking at some of the beautiful photos, over 200 photos. This is going to be a perennial gift. And I want to congratulate David for making a mark. If the Lord should tarry 1,000 years from now, this book will still be in demand. It's a legacy building book. And we are happy that you're getting the support that you should. The Jamaica Tourist Board has endorsed it. It is so wonderful. And the site is simple and beautiful. You can go to piecesofjamaica.com and order his book. And let me just read some of the endorsements that have come in as it relates to this book. This keepsake, Pieces of Jamaica, is a must-have as we celebrate this milestone in our history, 60 years of independence. That's from Donnie Dawson, Deputy Director of Tourism, the Americas, Jamaica Tourist Board. And then Zachary Harding, Executive Chairman of Delta Capital Partners and Board Member of JAMPRO and Caribbean Airlines, said, this type of collection will only help to tell our story in a bigger and better way. I want to read one final one. This one comes from Ambassador Clement Philip Ricardo Alicock. He says, this commemorative collection of photographic art from David Muir and Sean Henry dramatically captures the passion and intellect of our people and the beauty of our landscape in onstage ways, which renew our perspective of Jamaica and the Jamaican culture. So this book gives us a window into the heart, the spirit, and the joy of the Jamaican people. It captures the essence of Jamaica's beauty, humor, faith, confidence, power, and generosity. And it's a delightful treasure trove of revelatory glimpses. And to put in another plug here for David, this book seems to be like the perfect gift to give to someone at whatever occasion. It can be a wedding gift, anniversary gift, Christmas gift, you name it. And you heard the quality of the production. This is tailor-made, so it would be a good gift. Before we wrap up, what has been the best part of this journey and the most challenging part of the journey? So I'm asking three questions: the best part of the journey, the most challenging part of the journey, and what encouragement would you give to others who want to pursue a similar path?
Well, I'm gonna address the challenging part first. I don't know that there is any part that is actually most challenging. The truth is that undertaking this type of effort is going to be very challenging. If you allow it to be challenging, then it will defeat. The truth is you have to go in with a mentality that you can overcome anything. And if you put that effort, you can accomplish anything. It will happen like that. I didn't allow any challenge to be too great. And so all challenges that came felt manageable. It's a mindset, it's a perspective of how you take any problems, because there are many problems. I mean, uh, if I have to pick one, I think delays in delivery was the hardest thing. Because of the supply chain problems right now, everything has gone up or just takes too long to come. Paper prices have gone through the roof. Shipping prices are up. Shipping delays are annoying. There's so many parts to do with that whole supply chain demand that were extremely painful in just being patient and making things happen as they needed to. But most challenging depends on the person. I have chosen not to let any challenge be too great, and so they have all sort of evened out in some way. The best part is really hearing from fellow Jamaicans and even non-Jamaicans about what the work means to them. There is no small praise or big praise that is ever disregarded. I feel uh, the tremendous pride and joy when I hear both some of those glowing remarks made by important people in our culture, but even just hearing from a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old that, oh, I like these pictures, or from somebody who is grateful to have. There's so many people who I consider my intellectual superior who have read through the book and thanked us for the information provided. Nothing to do with pictures at all, just the sheer history and wealth of information. There's so much knowledge passed through the book that people really do appreciate when they take the time to read it. That those comments is what lifts me up at the highest. Um, you know, I don't want to be an egotistical person, but there is no greater joy for me than people recognizing and acknowledging the work that I've done and the work that our team has done, and seeing that it is worthy and important to them. And then I don't remember the third part of the question, but I will just say this as just a lesson to people who may be planning to go into the book business in any form or any place, is that it has been the greatest revelation of value to me, knowing that when I did my first coffee table book, it was sold for 45 US dollars at the time. And every single place, even though the work was so important and so great that we sold that book, people were always, oh man, 45, that's so much money. Can I get a discount? Is there a better way? And this new work, which sells for 125 US, I've had no one ask for a discount because they all simply appreciate the value of the work at its price. And people either buy it or they don't buy it. And I haven't yet met someone who came to buy the book who said, no, I'm not going to get it. They just buy it and they really appreciate it at its price point. And that is invaluable to me as a lesson of valuing myself and my work. Because honestly, even though part of the thinking when we did the first book was, I want to make it affordable. I want every Jamaican to be able to buy themselves a book. The truth was that I ended up disrespecting what was put into the book, because it was underselling the book, and we've had a greater response at the actual real value price than we did when we discounted the book to try and make it more accessible to others. So just a great life lesson for me is to really put things at their proper perspective and pricing, because people will, when it's a quality product, pay for what they're getting.
I love it. You answered the third question. And I know they said interviews ask one question at a time, but I really love that through publishing, you understand, you said that it's the greatest revelation of value. And tears almost come to my eyes, because that's what I found. When you have somebody who's dying and they ensure, no crying. I've had 2 authors who passed away. And that's why we're talking about legacy at the summit as well. And they spent their dying moments ensuring that the manuscript is okay, that even after they've gone, that they've left something. And this is why I have a passion for publishing, because you put it in words that I couldn't have coined better. It's one of the greatest revelation of value. And you can have conversations, and it builds relationships. So that's why our theme is beyond book sales, because publishing has value even beyond just the sales. It's what it does for you. And so I want to thank you for coming on the show. Can you just tell us, how can we get in touch with you? Besides Pieces of Jamaica, are you on social media? Where are all the places that we can find you online and learn more about you and what you do?
Well, there are quite a few places. I would tell you that I would first suggest anything at sign Pieces of Jamaica. So Pieces of Jamaica exists on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those public platforms. Likewise, my name is David Muir, but I go by David I. Muir with the letter I in between, because that's my middle initials for Irving is my middle name. So David Irving Muir. So David I. Muir, you can find on all platforms as well. So having said that, piecesofjamaica.com, as was said before here, barnesandnoble.com. I really support Barnes and Noble as a place to get it, because it's a bookseller specifically. It means a lot to someone who produces books to support those who sell books. And then, of course, also you can get it from Amazon and other sellers of products. But I'm more would tell you to support Barnes and Noble, or if not, if depending on where you are, if you're in, say, New York, if you can go to VP Records or one of these Caribbean-owned businesses, I'd happily suggest that as well. But if you go on our website, we do have a list of all the places where books are being sold currently. If you email me, I will happily respond. And my email is dmuir, my last name, at David, the letter I, like my middle initial, photo.com. So it's dmuir at davidiphoto.com. Or if you can't get all of that, you can just email David at islandsyndicate.com, and I'll receive it at both places. So thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Ruth, you are doing great work. Please continue to highlight publishing and highlight the work that needs to be done for Jamaican authors and for all Caribbean excellence. It is so important. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much, David. We'll put the links in the show notes. And then we invite you to come back out to the Caribbean Entrepreneur Summit on day 2, our morning session, January 21 at 10 a.m. Eastern. David will be among the panelists, and you can ask any question you want. We invite you to go to entrepreneursecrets.com and register for the summit so that you can get a link, access to all the interviews for the authors, the author experts who will be sharing on the summit, and also so that you will be able to get the Summit Toolkit to equip you to take charge of your publishing and dominate entrepreneurship. This is Ruth Taylor saying, thanks for listening. Share this episode with a friend, and you can email me at entrepreneursecrets@gmail.com and let me know how you are impacted by this episode. And go and get David's book. Ta for now, until next time.
I'm Tamara Francis, educator and editor. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share the podcast with your network. If you'd like to increase your impact and income with books, visit authorpreneursecrets.com for more resources, including the books Pen It to Win It and Authorpreneur Secrets. Join the Authorpreneur Secrets Academy membership group for courses, coaching, and community support to write, publish, and win with books. Until next time, go pen it to win it.